Hello everyone, welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfics. This will be the continuation of Burn Your Wings. This will be part 16, chapter 16, entitled Sugar and Spice and Everything Nice. Aizawa is aware of the fact that the homeroom teachers of Class A and Class B couldn't be more different. He's cold where Vlad King is hot. He's bland when Vlad is lively. He's rational to Vlad's emotionalness. It's something of a running joke among the teachers, which is why it's surprising when, for once, Aizawa finds that it's Vlad, trying to talk reason, and him, acting on instinct. Yamada would have had a field day if he knew. Aizawa doesn't fucking care. After gritting his teeth and getting through the press conference, he'd been watching the Kamino broadcast with Nezu and Vlad, and now that the fight is over, the dust has cleared, and All Might pointed into the camera and declared, "You're next," Aizawa doesn't even pause to consider what those potent words might mean. He springs up from his seat and rushes for the door. Because the Kamino raid, being over, means only one thing for him now. Midoriya. Vlad tries to stop Aizawa from leaving the room. "Wait, Eraser, I know you're worried, but we don't even know the situation yet. We should stay here and be on standby." Aizawa doesn't even dignify that with a response. He dodges Vlad's hand as he undoes his tie. He never liked the thing anyway, and uses it as a pseudo-capture weapon to deftly bind Vlad's wrists to the doorknob. Midoriya isn't the only one who can improvise. If his problem child can tie down Bakugo with a sling one-handed, then Aizawa can restrain another pro-hero with a fucking tie. The knot is too tight and intricate for Vlad to be able to undo his own, and while the hero could rip the door off, he probably won't want to damage the public property. Vlad is still shouting at Aizawa in an attempt to stop him. In contrast, Nezu doesn't even try. The principal just sighs and then gives Aizawa a resigned but fond smile and waves him off. Reassured that the principal won't untie Vlad for the time being, Aizawa gives a curt nod. And then he runs. Aizawa's contacts and status as a hero and teacher let him know the precise moment that Midoriya steps foot into the police station, and he rushes there with all the desperation that he felt that night on the summer camp. Was that really only 3 days ago? When he gets there, though, Midoriya isn't the only one of his students that he finds. "What?" The students cringe at Aizawa's flat tone. Ida and Yaoyorozu, the class president and vice president for fuck's sake, at least have the decency to lower their heads in shame in the face of Aizawa's disapproval, but they tellingly don't take even a step away from where they're crowding around Midoriya like some protective barrier. Kirishima scratches the back of his neck, and Bakugo hunches his shoulders but sticks out his chin. Uraraka has her arms wrapped tightly around Midoriya's right arm and is clinging to him like some particularly vicious koala, and Todoroki is holding Midoriya's left hand in what looks like a death grip. Midoriya gives Aizawa a sheepish smile, while the others avoid his eyes. Aizawa stares disbelievingly at his students. "You didn't." The kids, minus Midoriya, shuffle guiltily, but they stay stubbornly quiet. They totally did. Aizawa pinches the bridge of his nose. "I wish I could say I'm surprised," he finally sighs. "We'll talk about your behavior later, but for now, the rest of you go home so Midoriya can get checked out." "We want to stay." Aizawa glares with just the slightest flash of red in his eyes. That shuts up the kids, but they're still clustered around Midoriya like a pack of puppies with separation anxiety or something. Which, to be fair, is understandable considering everything, but rules are there for a reason, and as their teacher he needs to put his foot down. There's been enough drama for one night. It's Midoriya who eventually convinces them to leave. The kid quietly thanks the others, reassures them that he'll be fine, and gently nudges them along their way. It's only then that the kids reluctantly start to head home. Aizawa wonders if he should be more concerned about the fact that his students are more willing to listen to another student than their teacher. But then again, it's Midoriya. Kirishima grins and fist bumps Midoriya. Yaoyorozu murmurs a few words to him and lays a hand on his arm. Bakugo bumps his shoulder against Midoriya without looking at him as he passes by, and Ida and Uraraka, they both throw their arms around Midoriya in a hug one last time. No one seems to have the heart to tell Ida that he still has a fake mustache on. Aizawa is just not even going to ask why the kid has it in the first place. By the end of it all, Midoriya looks a little dazed at all the care and affection showered on him. Todoroki is the last to leave. His grip on Midoriya's hand tightens before reluctantly loosening. Considering that Aizawa heard Midoriya was kidnapped while Todoroki was holding on to him, he can understand the fear and the reluctance to separate again. Perhaps sensing the same thing, Midoriya jostles the other boy and gives him a small smile. "I'm sorry I lost your shirt," he says out of the blue. Todoroki blinks and then He lets out a sound that's almost a choked laugh. Midoriya's smile turns victorious at the air as it has lightened. "I'm sorry I lost you," Todoroki whispers back. Even with the mood lightened a bit, Todoroki still hesitates to leave. Midoriya looks like he wants to roll his eyes. "I know what you're thinking, but stop worrying. I'm at the police station. I'll survive without my villain deterrent." Todoroki shoots Midoriya a distrustful look, and instead turns to face Aizawa. "He's villain catnip," he says as if that explains anything. Midoriya mutters, "I am not," under his breath. Aizawa just sighs, as much as he feels like he's suffocating under all this. Well, there's no other word for it, fluff. He just nods and tells Todoroki what he wants to hear. "I'll keep him safe." Todoroki's shoulders slag minutely in relief. He bows his head slightly to Aizawa, exchanges one last look with Midoriya, and then he too leaves. And now it's just Aizawa and Midoriya left in the lobby of the police station. "Erase Aizawa-sensei." Midoriya starts nervously, and there's that slip again. The kid's eyes are darting around, as if he's not sure what to say. This is the first time that they're seeing each other properly since that summer camp, and the revelation since then has thrown a wrench in their relationship, which hadn't exactly been a normal one, even from all this. Frankly, Aizawa isn't sure what to say either. What even is the right thing to say to your student who'd been kidnapped and who you've also found out is the abused son of a villain that you caught a decade ago? Are you all right? What happened? How are your injuries? I'm sorry, I couldn't save you sooner. What did the villains do to you? Were you with others there? Your mother told me about your father? Sorry I didn't realize earlier. I'm just so glad you're safe." None of those sound right, but eventually it's Midoriya who breaks the silence. They won't be in trouble, will they?" Aizawa stares. His problem child had been brutally beaten by villains, kidnapped for 3 days, had his life story unwittingly exposed, and then he'd just barely been rescued. And the first thing out of the kid's mouth is a concern for others. This kid. "Please, Sensei." Midoriya looks up at him earnestly when Aizawa's silence stretches on. "They were careful not to engage in combat. They only wanted to help, to save me. Please, don't say that saving someone is ever the wrong thing to do." And that, coming from Midoriya to Aizawa, when now both of them know their shared history, that hits hard. Aizawa sighs. "I'll give them a stern talking to, but none of them will be severely punished," he admits. And Midoriya looks so relieved at those words that Aizawa feels his heart clench. More importantly, the hero, the teacher, the man who's claimed Midoriya Izuku, his in some way, plops his palm down on top of Midoriya's head. The kid looks up at him with wide green eyes, and Aizawa just gives up. There'd been so many things that he'd wanted to say, but when he looks at Midoriya now, all of that falls away. As much as it's becoming something of a habit for him to pat Midoriya's head, this time, instead of awkwardly patting that fluffy hair, he slides the hand down to the back of Midoriya's head, and he just pulls. Midoriya makes a soft, surprise sound as he's pulled face first into Aizawa's chest. His problem child stiffens for just a moment as Aizawa wraps his other arm around his shoulders, but in a stiff moment later, Midoriya melts into the embrace. Aizawa rests his chin on top of Midoriya's head as the kid starts trembling. He feels Midoriya's hands come up, tentatively clutching at the back of Aizawa's suit. "Eraserhead," Midoriya gasps his name in a breath that's not quite a sob, but almost. Thank you so much for coming." Aizawa isn't sure if Midoriya means right now, or when they met that night at summer camp, or 10 years ago when Aizawa unknowingly arrested his father. Whichever it is, Aizawa doesn't feel like he deserves thanks, because he'd been too late every single time. But that's not what Midoriya needs to hear right now, and frankly, that's not what Aizawa wants to say the most either. He gives up all pretense and just hugs his problem child tight. "Thank you for holding out, for enduring," he returns instead, and he ignores the way that his own voice cracks. Just like with Midoriya, Aizawa's not sure if he means the past few days or the past few years. Probably both. "You did good, Midoriya. You did good." Aizawa and the police escort Izuku home, with what was being the debrief and getting checked up at the hospital. It's well past midnight for the time that he finally arrives, but Inko still meets them at the doorstep. Izuku is startled when the door slams open. As soon as Aizawa rings the doorbell, Inko must have pulled with her quirk, as his mother is usually so cautious and quiet in her movements. Smothering their own sound and presence to the point of being almost silent is a habit both Izuku and Inko gained from their days with Hizashi and hadn't been able to lose since. But even that ingrained habit seems to be thrown out the window in Inko's desperation. Izuku wonders if it's weird for him to find that touching. He steps out from behind Aizawa. As soon as she catches sight of her son, Inko looks like she's about to cry. They've always cared for each other, but they've never been physically intimate. This is another habit born from their days with Hizashi, when Izuku was always wounded and Inko didn't want to hurt her son more by hugging him and aggravating his injuries. Izuku, who's received several amazing hugs from various people recently, decides that this habit can go ahead and be thrown out the window too. He hesitantly opens his arms and gives his mother a tentative smile. Inko clasps her hands to her mouth when she recognizes the gesture, and then she flings her arms, both of them around Izuku. "Welcome home, darling," Inko sobs, and Izuku buries his face in his mother's shoulder. "I'm home, Mom." It's only a bit over a full day later when Aizawa visits the Midori residence again, this time with All Might in tow. Inko had told Izuku that the two heroes had visited while he'd been kidnapped, and he couldn't help but notice how Inko consistently referred to Aizawa as a Razorhead, and not by his name or even your homeroom teacher. It seems that, much like Izuku himself, she still sees Aizawa as a hero first and Izuku's teacher second. All Might has one arm in a cast and is partially mummified, but he still draws Izuku into a fierce hug the moment that he opens the door. They had talked over the phone yesterday, but this is the first time seeing his mentor in person since Kamino. Izuku swallows thickly when All Might whispers, "My boy," against his ear, and gives a tremulous smile as he leads the two inside. The two heroes are seated at the coffee table once again, with Inko on the other side. The three adults get a strange sense of déjà vu as Inko pours them tea, but this time Izuku's right beside her, and the topic they've come to discuss is a lot brighter than before. Once again, it's Aizawa who takes the lead. "Thank you for having us. I'll get straight to the point. As we've already told you over the phone yesterday, UA is looking to change into a boarding school. We'll be going around to the families of all the students in the following days, but we think it's best for Midoriya to come into the dorms as soon as possible, today even." All Might nods and picks up when Aizawa left off. "I've heard that heroes and the police are watching your home, but young Midoriya has already been made an explicit target by the villains. Not to mention the general public, too, thanks to his declaration of 'you're next.' In all honesty, All Might hadn't expected anyone but Midoriya himself to realize what his message was. Gran Torino had chewed him out in the hospital as soon as All Might had regained consciousness. What were you thinking? That's right, you weren't thinking. You might as well just declare it a mere error on live television. Oh, wait, you already did." Tsukuuchi's sympathetic but resigned smile had only just marginally been better than Gran Torino's biting sarcasm. "Just be vague and deflect when anyone asks you directly. It's the media. It'll die down eventually if there's nothing new to feed it." So they hoped. With all the attention on him, the safest place for him now is within UA, especially when All Might himself can no longer protect his boy. The two Midoriyas are quiet for a moment before one of them answers. "I've thought about it, and I understand your reasoning, but I'm against it. All Might and Aizawa came here expecting opposition, of course. UA hasn't been able to protect their student, and now that they know that the family's history was with villains, it's not too far of a stretch to think that Inko would have lost faith in UA or even want Izuku to give up on being a hero altogether. But the thing is, it's not Inko who said those words. It's Izuku." "Honey?" Inko looks at her son in surprise. They hadn't discussed this beforehand, so it's only natural that she's shocked. Going to UA has always been his dream. Doubly so because of both All Might and Eraserhead's ties with the school, and no one knows that better than Inko. But Izuku has something to protect. "If I'm a target, I'm not the only one who's in danger." Izuku looks at Inko. "I can't leave you alone here." Inko's eyes widen, though in retrospect she shouldn't have been surprised. Izuku has always tried to protect her, after all, even at the cost of himself. And that's the problem. "Oh, Izuku," she breathes, "you can't protect me forever." When Izuku looks like he's going to refuse that, she shakes her head and rephrases, "You shouldn't protect me forever." That stops him. Protecting his mother is the first motivation that Izuku had ever felt, the defining moment of his life, and though he knows that he was never enough, that he only ever made her cry, still. He has no idea what expression is on his face, but Inko shakes her head at the sight of it. "No, darling," she says. You did protect me." But the thing is, Izuku, you never should have had to. I should have protected you, and I'm so sorry that I couldn't. I'm sorry that you felt like you had to protect me. I'm so sorry that even now you're still protecting me." The string of apologies makes Izuku wince, but Inko doesn't let it end this time. She clasps her hands together and looks at Izuku. "But Izuku, I know I'm too late, but now I want to protect you. At the very least, I want to protect your dream." I don't understand," he thinks. Inko gives him a watery smile. "Honey, you didn't tell me that you even applied to UA until after you got in." All Might makes a stifled sound of surprise, and Aizawa visibly stiffens at that revelation. "I think I know why. You probably didn't want to let me down in case you didn't get in, right? You were trying to protect me, even from my own disappointment. I know I'm not the best to judge, but, honey, that's not healthy." Inko takes in a deep breath. She has always loved her son. Even during the worst days with Hisashi, Izuku was the one good thing in her life. All Might had claimed Izuku as his boy, and Aizawa dubbed him his problem child, but even Inko doesn't know it. But Izuku's Inko's world. "Some part of me wishes that you wouldn't become a hero," she admits. "I know it's selfish when we ourselves were saved by one, but the Kamino broadcast showed just how much heroes get hurt. I don't want you to get hurt anymore, but I know it's your dream, and I can never oppose what you want to do. And I can't protect you from harm, not like you did for me, but I'll do whatever I can to at least protect your dream." It breaks her apart. A child shouldn't have to protect their parent, shouldn't ever feel like they even had to in the first place. It's her job, as a mother, to protect her son, and yet Izuku's been trying to protect her for all these years. It breaks her. It tears her apart, and now that Hisashi is gone, she just wants it all to be over. But her guilt ensures that she can never deny Izuku what he wants, even though being a hero means that Izuku will undoubtedly be hurt again. She has no right to stop him. She'll do whatever she can to at least lessen his burden. Inko gently reaches out to take his hand. They're consciously been initiating more physical contact with each other since Izuku had come back, and when Inko squeezes Izuku's hand, it somehow conveys her earnestness. "I don't ever want to hold you back, not anymore, so don't worry about me. The police said they'll keep an eye on me. What will make me the happiest is seeing you happy, and for that you need to follow your dream, at UA, with All Might and Eraserhead, with your friends." Izuku swallows thickly. "But then what about you?" he whispers. Hisashi is gone, and Bakugo Mitsuki had been Inko's steadfast friend, but Inko and Izuku had always been together. They have always had each other. I know I was never enough, that I couldn't save you, let alone protect you, but—" "Oh, Izuku." The smile that Inko gives him is pained and loving and regretful and grateful all at the same time. "You were always my hero." At those 5 words, Izuku's breath catches. Izuku had always been haunted by memories of his father's laugh and his mother's cries. He could never regret trying to protect his mother, but the guilt of not being enough had always weighed down on him. He'd tried to protect her, but he'd never been able to save her. She had always cried. She had always apologized. "Oh, Izuku," Inko had sobbed. "I'm so sorry." "No, Mom," Izuku had thought. "Don't be sorry. What I wanted you to say was—" And Izuku isn't even sure what he wanted to hear anymore. "Thank you. It's all right. You can be a hero." He doesn't know. He doesn't even remember. Too much time had passed. Too many tears had been spilled. But now Inko is telling him, "You were always my hero." And with those 5 simple words, everything becomes worth it. "Oh," Izuku breathes. Inko smiles at him, and her green eyes are shining bright with unshed tears, but her tone is firm in a way that it hasn't ever been before. "You're too good for your own good," she sighs softly. "The only way you'll be happy is if you're doing your best to help other people. I won't stop you, but promise me that you'll take care of yourself too. For my sake, if not yours." "You can't save anyone if you don't save yourself first." Aizawa's words echo in his mind. "Okay," Izuku whispers. Inko squeezes their hands. "Good. Then it's decided." A sniffle suddenly echoes in the room, and both Midoriyas turn their heads to the sound and remember with a jolt that they're not in fact alone. All Might seems to be trying to keep his tears and the emotional display from going on. Aizawa has a painfully awkward expression at getting a front row seat to the family drama that he's unknowingly contributed to a decade ago. Izuku gives them a sheepish grin. "So, I guess I'm going to the dorms?" he hastily concludes for them. Aizawa looks just so relieved to be freed from all of this drama. All Might sniffles again. Inko hands him a wad of tissues and pats his hand, and Izuku just smiles at them. He only allows himself to break down when he's safely alone in his new dorm room later that day. "How did you do it?" Izuku whispers into his phone. He and Todoroki had been texting more and more frequently, but this is the first time either of them had called the other. Some part of Izuku thinks that maybe this should feel more awkward, but it only feels natural. "I know our situations are different," he continues. It's true, Todoroki and his mother had not been able to talk about what had happened between them for a decade because they'd been separated physically. Izuku and Inko hadn't talked about what happened for a decade either, but they'd always been together at least. It's different, but it's similar enough. I don't know, we never really talked about it. It's not something you just bring up, so I've always thought. But she said, he's rambling, he knows, but somehow he's always done, Todoroki just understands. Todoroki, they're both aware, isn't exactly the best person to ask for advice on healthy, normal social interactions, but he still has a seniority over Izuku in this whole reconciling with your mother over shared trauma after 10 years business. The other boy makes a sound over the line, and Izuku can picture the way that he must be tapping a finger on his knee. He fiercely wishes that they were talking face to face, like that time on the bunk bed at the Hosu hospital, or when they sat side by side that night during the summer camp. How did you do it?" he finds himself repeating helplessly. "I think," Todoroki eventually starts slowly, "what mattered in the end was that we still loved each other. That alone isn't enough, of course. Just because you love someone doesn't mean that everything you do is all right, but it does mean that you can still try." Todoroki and his mother loved each other, but they had also undoubtedly hurt each other. The mere sight of her son's left side had tormented Rei, and she eventually poured boiling water over him. Izuku loved his mother, yes, but that doesn't mean it didn't hurt when she'd screamed at him. He's still traumatized to this day by the sound of her screams, and apparently Inko had also been hurt by the way that Izuku kept things from her in an attempt to protect her. Even with a solid decade of peace without Hisashi, they had been too hurt and afraid to really talk and work it through together. But in the end, they still care enough that they can look past the hurt. They still love enough to try and reach out to each other. "You're right," Izuku murmurs. "Yeah, that's okay. Yeah." He huffs a laugh. "Thanks again. I don't know what I'd do without you." "It's the other way around," Todoroki says quietly after a beat. "Huh?" "Nothing. I'll tell you sometime later." Izuku nods even though Todoroki can't see him over the phone. "If you say so, but really, thank you. Even if we're not exactly the same, it helps knowing you're not alone." "Yeah, I know." Shoto had always wanted to be a hero. Izuku had always wanted to be a hero. Rei, Shoto's mother, had hugged him and assured that you can be a hero. Inko, Izuku's mother, had kneeled in front of him and cried, "I'm so sorry." When Shoto was 5, his father Enji started training him. When Izuku was 3, his father Hisashi started beating his mother. Rei tried to stop Enji, but the man just hit her. Izuku tried to stop Hisashi, but the man just hit him. That blow broke Rei. That blow made Izuku. Rei fell to the ground, all the pain and fear making her crumble and fold. Izuku stood his ground, all the pain and adrenaline making him bare his teeth. And Rei poured boiling water at the sight of her son, and Inko screamed at the sight of fire coming from her son. Shoto was traumatized. Izuku was traumatized. At the age of 5, Shoto's mother was abruptly sent away, leaving him with his father. At the age of 5, Izuku's father was abruptly arrested, leaving him and his mother alone. Shoto swore to never use his fire. Izuku swore to never use his fire, but when Shoto turned 15 and met Izuku, he accepted his fire and talked to his mother. When Izuku turned 15 and met Shoto, he accepted his fire and he talked to his mother. Rei told her son she was sorry, and Shoto was able to find peace. Inko also told her son that she was sorry, but Izuku could not find peace, because that had never been what Izuku wanted her to say. But then Inko takes her son's hands, looks him in the eye, and tells him, "You were always my hero." And with those words, everything becomes worth it. The rest of Class 1A arrive at Heights Alliance dormitories in the next few days. Aizawa meets them outside, but Izuku is instructed to wait in the lobby. Izuku suspects it has to do with the stern talking to that Aizawa had mentioned. He doesn't like the fact that his friends are in trouble for saving him, but at least Aizawa promised that they won't be punished for it. When the other students come in, finally, Izuku swallows down his nerves and goes to greet them. This is the first time he's meeting all of them after Kamino, after all. Izuku tries to smile brightly. "Welcome home." Class 1A pauses for a moment, staring at him. The Deku Rescue Squad, Kirishima's words, not his, hadn't asked anything, but Izuku knows his class must want explanations. He's seen the various news articles and speculations that had come out about him over the past few days, ranging from hilariously off the mark, dangerously close to the truth, and his classmates are bound to be wondering the same things as what feels like the entire world. Izuku sees Kaminari open his mouth and mentally braces himself for the questions, but then, "I'm home, honey," Kirishima responds loudly as he slings an arm around Izuku's shoulders. He then proceeds to drag Izuku inside the dorms, chattering animatedly in his ear about the facilities with just a tad too much vigor to be genuine. Izuku cranes his neck around to see Kaminari hiss in pain as Jiro stabs him in the side with her earphone jack. "What? I wasn't going to ask about— Ow! Stop it!" And then Izuku is dragged away before he can hear any more. This strange awkwardness continues on throughout the tour of the building. Sato and Sero give them the customary pat-down Midoriya check to see if he's really okay after a big incident routine, but their classmates are noticeably refraining from asking Izuku about, well, anything, considering that they had no qualms with the stain video, outside of being sensitive with Ida's situation. This is strange, to say the least. So when the students finally break up to unpack their things, Izuku hesitates in front of his own room. Todoroki, who's been assigned to the room on Izuku's right, sees him and quirks an eyebrow. He opens the door to his room and gestures inside with a questioning look. "You know me so well," Izuku smiles ruefully as he gratefully steps inside. Todoroki follows in and closes the door behind them. "What's the matter?" "I was hoping you could tell me. Do you know why everyone's acting so weird?" Izuku gestures vaguely. "I was expecting people to ask questions, but it looks like they're just actively trying not to." Todoroki nods. "It was Uraraka and Yayorozu's idea. Right before we came inside the dorms, we all agreed not to ask you about Kamino. You already have the world on your case. We don't need to add to that. And besides, it's not like it changes how we think of you." "Oh, that's really, really kind of them all. But," Izuku swallows, "but what about you guys? You heard about my father." He winces even as he says the words. "I'm not even sure how many people were there, but you guys should have questions. I hid the fact that my father is a villain. Todoroki stops Izuku's faltering words by placing a hand on his shoulder. Izuku only realizes that his head had unconsciously lowered when he has to raise his gaze to meet Todoroki's eyes. Those mismatched eyes look straight at him and are clear and warm as ever. "The students who were there with me, it was Ida, Uraraka, Bakugo, and Kirishima. If you want to talk about it, we're here for you, but if you don't, that's fine too. As I said, it doesn't change how we think of you." Todoroki pauses and squeezes his hand. "It doesn't change what you mean to us. To me." Izuku looks up at Todoroki with wide, watery eyes. He's so blessed to have these people around him. "How do you always make me feel better with just a few words?" he wonders. "You're amazing." For some reason, a faint dusting of pink appears on Todoroki's cheeks at that. "How do you keep saying things like that with a straight face?" Todoroki groans as he draws back a step and covers his face with both his hands. Izuku blinks. He doesn't get it. If anything, Todoroki is worse than him. He looks around the room for something to change the subject. "Do you want help unpacking? I'm already done, so I have plenty of time." That gets Todoroki to lift his face from his hands. "If you don't mind, then yes, I'd appreciate it." He opens one packing box to reveal tatami mats inside. "With you, we'll be able to finish well before dinner." Izuku stares. "You brought all this with you?" He's not sure if it's a question or a disbelieving statement. Todoroki shrugs. "My home is Japanese-styled," he says as if that explains anything. Izuku stares some more. "You really are amazing," he ends up saying. He doesn't quite mean it the same way as he did before, though. Their other classmates are just as incredulous at Todoroki's reformed room. "Is this even possible?" Sero gapes at the changed flooring. "Midoriya helped." Todoroki shrugs. "Speaking of Midoriya," Ashido grins mischievously and runs off to the next room, throws open Izuku's door, and Izuku eeps in embarrassment as their classmates pour inside. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this, Tokiyami comments. It feels a bit bare. Izuku's room is nowhere near as sparse as Shoji's minimalist room, but it also has what's essential. The Midoriyas have never been ones to indulge. First, because Inko and Izuku were too terrified of Izashi to risk doing anything that might set him off, and then because they couldn't afford much with only Inko's income. So Izuku kept his room fairly Spartan, with a few exceptions, of course. A few All Might posters that hang proudly on the walls, but what drew his classmates' eyes is the one printed-out picture that hangs in the place of honor amidst them. It's a grainy and low quality, faded and frayed with old age, but lovingly preserved and framed. Is that Aizawa-sensei? Izuku buries his face in his hands. Wow, look how faded it is. How old is this Midoriya? 10 years, Izuku mumbles into his hands, and Kirishima whistles. Talk about dedication. I'm impressed. Wait, so you knew Aizawa-sensei before UA? Izuku pauses at that question. Todoroki said it's okay not to talk about it if he really doesn't want to, and Izuku believes him. Miraculously, Izuku believes him. So when he opens his mouth, it isn't because he's afraid of what they'll think of him for hiding things, or because they deserve to know, or because he feels like it's an obligation. It's because he wants to. Eraserhead saved me and my mom when I was little, he says, the words coming out of him surprisingly easily. Some of Class A exclaim in surprise at the connection, but Izuku sees Todoroki, Ida, Uraraka, and Kirishima's eyes. They widen in understanding. Wait, is that the bouncy ball that Aizawa-sensei threw at you on the first day of class? Oh my god, seriously? Izuku's ears flash, but he grins and shrugs helplessly. I asked. He said I could keep it. Sero bursts out laughing at Izuku's fanboying, while the other girls make their way over to his bed, where the 2 plushies All Might had gifted him are resting. Aw, these are so cute, Hagakure fawns, picking up the green bunny. I didn't expect you to have something like this, but I approve. Oh, they were a gift from someone. It's probably best not to bring any attention to Izuku and All Might's relationship, especially when they've already politely turning their heads the other way. Ashido coos a little while petting the green Pomeranian. I mean, I get the bunny. It looks exactly like Midoriya. It does not, Izuku protests, though no one even dignifies him with an answer. But why the puppy? She wonders. Her question is answered a few days later. There are toilets in each of the rooms, but the bathing area is a shared space, so Izuku has resorted to taking his showers earlier in the morning or late at night to avoid his classmates. On this particular occasion, he's opted for late in the night, finishing just a few minutes shy of curfew. Izuku has just tied his damp hair into a messy low ponytail and pulled on his clothes when the door to the locker room opens, and someone steps inside. Oh! Izuku jumps. Makes sure that his back is covered before turning to greet the person. Hi, Shoji. Did you leave something here? Shoji? But Shoji just kind of stares at Izuku, and the mouth on one end of the tentacle is hanging open, and then he very slowly lifts another tentacle and snaps a photo of Izuku with his phone. Snap. Izuku blinks. Shoji? But the boy is now furiously tapping away on his phone. Izuku is about to call him again, but he hears the ping of his own phone notifying a text. Izuku glances at Shoji before pulling out his phone and finds that there are several new texts on the Class A chat room for emergencies. It's a mouthful, he knows, but Ida had named it, and no one had the heart to try to change it. Shoji. Guys, I found out why he's a Pomeranian. Image sent. The photo attached is of Izuku, frozen with a wide-eyed deer-in-headlights look, his hair in that low, bushy ponytail. Izuku's just about to ask what's going on when the chat room blows up. Oh my god. Dude, what? The bunny tail evolves into a Pomeranian tail. What the fuck? Oh my god. Dude. How does that even work? Aw. He's not just a bunny. He's a puppy too? What is this, and why did we not have one in our lives earlier? This is ridiculous. Midoriya, Shoji, it's almost curfew. Please return to your rooms. And everyone, this is a chat room for emergencies only. What the fuck do you mean, Ida? This is an emergency. We've just unraveled the mysteries of the universe. Oh my god. When Izuku meets Shinso a few days later for their first practice session, the boy greets Izuku with a, So, I heard about those bunnies and Pomeranian dolls. Izuku sputters because just how? Shinso's not even living in the same building as Class A. What the fuck? but then all the others are blown out of Izuku's mind when Shinso hands him something. Thought you might as well have this, too. Izuku stares down at the object that Shinso has dumped into his arms. It's a plushie. It's a stuffed animal. It's green. It's a guinea pig. Izuku looks up at the other boy with betrayal written on his face. Traitor, he accuses. Shinso looks ridiculously pleased with himself. The addition to Izuku's collection of fluffy green animal lookalikes. I do not look like them. Stop laughing. The students are training to make some special moves in preparation for the provisional license exam. Izuku had been getting some ideas from various people from the beginning. He modeled his fighting style after Eraserhead, mimicked All Might's smashes, took note of ripped off Bakugo's moves, sorry not sorry, Kachan, and learned from Gran Torino's erratic movement patterns. And so it's only natural for him to turn to his friends for help. He remembers how useless he was when he'd been kidnapped with his arms broken. Aizawa was, as always, right. Izuku can't be held back by such a weakness, and even if he is, he needs more cards up his sleeve to compensate. Izuku had already tried using One for All to strengthen his legs during his fight with Bakugo at the finals of the sports festival when his arms were out of commission. With Full Cowl and Ida's help, he's forming a new kick-based fighting style to alleviate the strain on his arms. He also visited Hatsume Mei at the development studio to reform his costume to better suit his new shoot style, and while she had been enthusiastic and helpful, she had also been scarily adamant about showing Izuku some of her more inspired inventions. What do you think of this, baby? I got the inspiration from the Mito Bunny tentacle burrito. The what? You know, when you were wrapped up in those tentacles at the sports festival like a scene from an Arrow manga? Stop. Just, please, stop. And when the training with the fire side of his quirk with Shinso and exchanging ideas with Todoroki, Izuku's pretty satisfied with how his training's been going. One evening, Izuku has come down to the common area of the dorms for a glass of water when someone waves him over. Oh, hey, Midoriya! It turns out to be the girls sitting together on the sofas. It looks like Hagakure was the one to call him. The invisible girl bounces over to him. Can I pet your hair? She blurts out. Huh? Izuku blinks at the request. Hagakure's sleeves move up and down as if she's waving her arms. I mean, I always wanted to ask because it looks so soft and fluffy, but it sounds kind of weird, you know. But now that we're living together, I figured it's as good a chance as ever, so what do you say? Izuku blinks again at her enthusiasm. I guess. It's not like touching his hair is going to harm him, and besides, can't be any weirder than Todoroki kneading his hand like some giant cat, right? Yes! Hagakure does a little victory dance and then draws Izuku toward the common room. She seats Izuku on the floor in front of one of the sofas and proceeds to pet his hair. Ooh, so soft, so fluffy. One by one, the other girls join in, cooing and awing. Someone tugs the bobby pins out of Izuku's bun while multiple fingers comb through his curls. And Izuku just has no idea how this happened, but before he knows it, the girls have started to really get down to business in playing with his hair. Izuku sits on the floor, blinking owlishly as Hagakure and Ashito braid little sections of his hair with bits of colorful ribbons while they chatter together. Asui and Uraraka are also decorating the right side of his head with pink flower-shaped pins, and he's sure that his green hair makes him look like some kind of demented flower bush. Izuku doesn't even want to know what Jiro and Yagirozu are doing in the back of his hair. Where did they even get all of these ribbons and pins from? Did Yagirozu make them with her quirk? Traitor. Izuku's sitting there bewildered when he spots Ojiro staring at them from where he was passing through the hallway. Help, he pleads. Ojiro just wordlessly lifts up his phone, and then he takes a picture of them. Snap. With the way Izuku's phone is blowing up in his pocket, he must have uploaded it to the group chat. He stares at Ojiro in disbelief. Traitor. Traitors everywhere. The boy just grins. It becomes a thing. Jiro uploads a photo of Kaminari when he short-circuited during training. Sero uploads a photo of Kirishima snoring away inside the bathtub, and in retaliation, Kirishima gets a photo of Sero falling from his hammock with a comical expression on his face. Someone uploads the sorry remains of a late-night foods fight that had broken out when some of the boys had snuck out of their rooms for a midnight snack, and then Sato starts putting up photos of whatever snack that he's baked whenever he needs taste testers, and so on and so on. The Class 1A chat room for emergencies becomes filled with so many funny photos of each other, homemade memes, and food pics as well. It gets to the point that even Ida gives up on trying to stop them, and he just makes a new group chat named Class 1A Chat Room for Real Emergencies. Ida gestures and poses dramatically in despair at the thought that he's failed his duties as the class president. Izuku pats Ida's back in consolation with one hand while he snaps a photo with the other, and then he uploads it to the group chat. Midoriya sent an image. We finally broke him. Good job, team. High five emoji is sent. He receives a slew of high five emojis in return. Shoto brings out 2 mugs and sets them on the table in the shared kitchen space. It's late in the evening, and most of their other classmates are in the rooms. It isn't long before the person he'd been waiting for shows up. Hey, Midoriya smiles at him, and Shoto feels an answering smile tug at his lips, easier and freer with each passing day. Hey, he returns, but then he blinks as he realizes that Midoriya didn't come empty-handed. What are those? Midoriya looks down at the plate that he's holding. Some kind of bread? Mini cake? I think Aoyama said it's called something fancier. Shoto raises his brows, slightly questioning. Midoriya gives him a pained look. Don't ask me, I have no idea what's going on. Aoyama keeps feeding me. Last night he left me cheese, on my balcony, and Koda keeps giving me carrots, and I'm positive they're actually for his pet rabbit. Shoto bites his lower lip to try to keep in a grin as Midoriya half-heartedly grumbles about their classmates treating him like their resident bunny, or Pomeranian, or guinea pig. Class A may have agreed to not ask anything, but it's not like the kidnapping had no effect on them. While the students still look up to Midoriya, now they're also taking to looking after Midoriya as well. Midoriya sets the plate of snacks on the table beside the 2 mugs, and Shoto brings out some milk and honey. During the summer training camp, Shoto had warmed milk with his quirk, and he had shared it with Midoriya. And now Midoriya is holding him to his promise to teach him how to do it, so they have these sessions a few days a week. Sometimes they're joined by Sato, who frequents the kitchen and provides them with extra food to practice heating. Sometimes it's Yaoyorozu, who gave them an impassioned lecture on tea-making and gifted them some tea bags. Today, though, it's just the 2 of them, and Shoto can't help but appreciate that. Some of their classmates had groaned and made disgusted noises when they found out what they were doing. We were training all day, and you're training more after school? But Shoto actually finds this time rather relaxing. It's nice, being able to teach Midoriya about the fire quirk they share. Shoto knows it's ridiculous, but it makes him feel more connected, closer. And it's a perfect excuse to be with Midoriya more, so how could he ever complain? He shakes off those thoughts as he pours the milk into the mugs. Remember, don't overheat it. This won't explode like the eggs, but it's best to be safe. Midoriya wrinkles his nose at the reminder of some of their more exciting failures. He wraps both his hands around one mug and stares down at it with a slight frown marring his brow. Shoto is seized by the urge to smooth that crease away, but he refrains, if only for the sake of not breaking Midoriya's concentration. A faint glow blossoms beneath them. Small licks of flame jump between Midoriya's fingers, and Shoto is pleased to see that they don't burn Midoriya anymore. Soon enough, the milk is brought to a slight simmer, and the mug is steaming. Midoriya sits back with a relieved sigh. He twitches one finger, and the honey comes soaring to him. He dribbles it into the warm milk and hands the mug to Shoto. How's that? Shoto takes a sip of the drink. Not bad. A little more honey next time, please. Midoriya rolls his eyes, though his lips can't help curving in a smile. I was talking about my quirk, but sure, I'll keep that in mind. Shoto hides his own smile behind the mug, though he's sure that Midoriya can read it even so. You're getting faster, he compliments as he hands Midoriya the mug of milk that he'd warmed while Midoriya was concentrating on his. Midoriya groans. Not as fast as you, evidently. He takes a sip of the offered drink. A little less honey in mine next time, please. I'll keep that in mind. They smile at each other. This concludes Chapter 16 of Burn Your Wings. Chapter 17 will be next, and as always, I hope you guys are still enjoying, and thank you so much for listening.